feeds the fire in us. Fans alive, we unite under the stadium lights. Every team, every score, we always hunger for more. Friday nights and Sunday games, we know all the biggest names. Huddle with the crew we trust. Football feeds the fire in us. Fan day morning, feeling alive. Jerseys on, we're ready to die. In the fan zone, we'll come on. Let's cheer loud, let's stand tall. Back and forth, the stories fly. Who's the best? Fans can't lie. Touchdowns, tackles, we discuss. Feel the rush, come join us.
And welcome to Fan Zone Live, one of the internet's longest running shows on the internet about arena football. I'm Tim Capper along with Scott Burke. We want to welcome you guys to the, we'll call it the, well, it's obviously kickoff for the AF1 season, but also something that is, we're calling the State of the League. And what better way to do it, right, Scott, is with these two gentlemen. Obviously, Gary Compton, Director of Football Ops, and Commish Fish. Sorry, I had to do it, Jeff.
It's
Commissioner
okay.
Jeff
I love
Fisher.
it. I love it. Thank you.
Welcome, guys.
Great opening, guys. And especially with respect to the guitar, man. Who played that guitar? That was great.
That was a few
You
clicks
guys
from
probably
old
don't
AI
even know,
friends.
do you? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but see, if you only knew Jeff, that talk to Scott. That's AI. It's AI.
Yeah, the thing is, there's no artists lost their jobs because of this one. Because man, I don't have the money to make an artist, pay an artist to do this. So, so guys, welcome. Seriously, it's just an absolute honor to have both y'all here.
Well, thanks for having us. Yeah, I really appreciate it. It's a great opportunity. We're really excited. You know, we as is discussed many times during the quote off season. It's not the off season. It's the between season. And so the between season is ending this Saturday. And so we're really excited about what's ahead for this upcoming season. So thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
You obviously heading into the 26 seasons, your second, actually we call it your 2.5 year as commissioner, Jeff. What, from last year to this year, what do you see personally as some of the biggest changes that you've had to not necessarily hurdle, but some of the biggest changes that you've seen between season 1 of AF1 and this current season 2?
Great question. I'd say the biggest difference between last year and this year is we've pulled everybody together with Gary's experience and his expertise and his, I mean, you know, he's demonstrative and he makes sure that guys are following the rules, et cetera, et cetera. But we've got everybody together. For decades, this has been a keep it a secret, don't tell anybody who you're signing and all this kind of stuff. And so it's been very competitive for decades. But in order to get where we want to get to in the next couple of years, we all have to get on the same page and we all have to work together. And that includes asking people that have been in this business for a long time to do things differently. And so far, we've seen that change, and we would expect that change to carry over into the regular season this weekend. So it involves a lot of different things. It involves, I mean, from rule discussions, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But it's about talking about everything from an operational standpoint. Okay, roster management, when, how, who, where, and all those kind of things have to be discussed as a league rather than kept a secret. And then someone else, in years past, someone's going to try to do a broadcast of a game, and there's a number one down there in the field, and it's not on the roster, and they're trying to figure out who this guy is, and somebody snuck him in, and all that kind of stuff. So we're following the rules. And we've laid them out there for everybody, so we can get to where we want to get to. And I'm sure we'll talk about that, in due time.
How do you juggle something like that? As you talk about transparency, I mean, you look at your fellow colleagues in the HQ. Obviously, a man everybody knows in Jerry Kurz, and obviously Christy McEwen. That if you've been following arena style football for as long as we have, we know the names. How is it that everybody is able to make sure that, as you said, I don't want to say teach an old dog new tricks, because these guys have been around for so long, but how is it that you're able to get everybody on board to make sure that sometimes you do need to think outside of the box on something?
Well, that's true, and I'll let Gary answer that, because Gary's been that central figure. He's the one that has coaches meetings. I mean, over and over, daily and weekly, and rules discussions and everything. So, Gary, if you want to take it from there, I mean, I'm giving you a lot of credit for this, because he has that relationship with the coaches, and he's the one behind the scenes that are going, hey guys, things are going to be different now. Okay, we've finally got a management group that's on the same page, and with a lot of outside influence, but we're going to do it this way. And if you don't do it this way, then you might be looking for work next year, or you might be looking at another league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what, Jeff, I appreciate that and everything. And guys, it's always about evolvement, right? As anything else, you look at the game of football's evolved over the course of the years, right? As you said, Tim, everybody's got to think outside the box. Okay. The game has changed a little bit. The game's different, but we all know at the end of the day, it is arena football, rebound nets, walls, balls bouncing, and everything else. However, with no more Ironman rules, right, becomes free substitution. The strategies change a little bit, right? In certain situations of the point scaling, strategies change a little bit. So you have to be cognizant and really know everything of what's going on. As Commissioner said, we went back since August with coaches meetings, right? Since all the new teams were announced, we've had coaches meetings every 2 weeks up until January. Then we had coaches meetings every week. So there isn't anything that has not been discussed, or they do not know what's expected, because the management group and commission, the board, they give me direction. That direction's handed down. And as Commissioner said, you don't follow those rules anymore. There are consequences for those. And we're going to make this be a lot different than it's been, because there is a big picture view of where we want to go in the next 48, 72 months, 2 or 3 years from now, and get to where, ultimately we want to be.
So you talk to fans that have seen this game over the years, and they'll tell you pretty much the same thing. It's the things that take down teams, take down leagues. It's egos, whether it's players, coaches, ownership. And from what I've seen, the folks I've talked to, it seems like you got a good group, a good team that is wanting to work together and actually make this product into something.
Yeah, it's the management group's been outstanding. There's a model that makes things work, and these guys have built that model, right? And everybody's in it for the same reason. As you said, we're not, the way I look at it is, you walk in the door, you check your ego, you check your title at the door. At the end of the day, we're all here for one common goal, and that one common goal is to be successful, get this out there, grow this, as Jeff said, with some outside resources that we're going to be able to utilize, make this bigger, and get it where we want to go in the expectations of what the management group and them, expect from us.
I asked Commissioner earlier, I'll ask you the same question, Gary, from year 1 to year 2. What have you seen as the biggest changes or the biggest challenges coming into year 2?
I think, a lot of it is, as Jeff said, the expectations, right? We were a little lackadaisical, maybe I may say it, a little, lenient with a lot of things last year that we let go because of certain situations. If we did something, do you scare off an ownership group? Are you afraid they might, you know what I mean with that? Do they jump ship? Because we all know, I mean, hell, in all actuality, you almost treat it like the transfer portal with college athletics now, right? I don't like you. I'm going somewhere else, So you don't want to be that point to where, oh, I've got to watch my P's and Q's with everything, but you don't want to lose teams and have teams move and all that. So we want to make sure everybody understands from the bottom all the way up the expectations on what we're trying to achieve and what's expected and who's holding who accountable and all of that, because that's what it's all about.
I was going to say, how picking up the teams and moving and stuff like that, to both Jeff and to you, Gary, how do you stop the he said when it comes to what the league is going to say or it doesn't say when a team leaves versus what the team that it left the league may say once they join a new league? What's the fan to think when, as you said, I mean, a team does leave, but it may be because of reasons that is not known to the public.
Commish, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll tell you, again, I'm new in this. I've only been in it. I'm still learning. But what I have come to realize, and it's not that hard, is what affects leagues, alternate leagues, whether it's a alternate 11 on 11 spring league, and there's been many that have come and gone. We have a couple that are playing right now, but those things are very, very simple. It's travel expenses. Those things can really, really hurt. And these are financial issues, of course, but travel expenses, things like that. Then you get into workman's comp and you get into all these other things, and before you know it, you're running out of money. And so, with respect to some of the teams that left after last season, great respect for the ownership, have had great memories, great trips into a couple of these cities and these venues, and our expectation is they're going to want to come back. And because now again, we understand they didn't give us the details, but you can read between the lines. But our expectation is they're going to want to come back once they see us rolling. And so it hasn't been easy, believe me. I mean, when you mentioned that half a season, our first year in it, my first year in it, there were some things that just weren't adding up, and and that was a difficult time. But we circled the wagons, and those teams that survived it and hung in there are going to benefit from it. Unfortunately, we lost a couple last year, but we've been very fortunate to replace those teams with great ownership and great and very high expectations, shared expectations with us. So we fully expect to be, the premier indoor football 50-yard game league, if we aren't already. So, there's a lot of fun ahead, but there, there were some difficult times. Trust us, and those that hung together are gonna benefit definitely from it.
So, in respect to costs and travel and those teams that have left and the teams that have come in, uh, is it a goal of the league at this point to maybe get our new teams to be a little less rural, because of travel costs, because it's a lot easier to get to since Cincinnati than it is to get to Dodge City, Kansas, for example. Is that the goal,
Well,
to kind of stay closer to
Well, I
the
think, yeah,
cities?
but I think it's also, you take, for example, where the Cats are here in Nashville, going to be playing Clarksville. We're not too far away from a lot of other cities, potential cities that we're exploring and that have expressed interest. So when we get up and running and everybody sees what we're doing, we expect to have divisions, if you will, that are close by, that where you can, if you can have 50% of your travel take place on buses, then you're way ahead of it. And so the rural part, it's interesting you bring that up. I had some of the best experiences, in the in Dodge City or in Salina.
Well, yeah,
I
great
mean,
facilities,
they're
great
great
places.
facilities, great fan base. It's the only thing in town, and they're sustainable. They just unfortunately, decided to take a step back. But all the new teams that have joined AF1, they're definitely sustainable. They're definitely got great leadership and ownership, and understand what's to be expected and what's ahead. From ahead of them. From a financial standpoint.
So I got to make my pitch since we're talking about this. City you know well. St. Louis has got some great transportation. Just saying. Love to see a team come out my way for sure.
It's a great sports town. Trust me, I know it very, very well. Really, and
It
they've
sounds
been
like,
through a
guys,
lot. They've been
Yeah.
through a lot too. So, yeah, it's a great sports town. Great fans.
it sounds like what you want to do, guys, is that you're looking to make it so that these divisions, we'll call them, are very fan travel friendly. And it would be me, and I'll just use Albany as an example. Maybe get into the team in the Northeast that they can travel to. I'll just say, let's say Boston as an example. Boston and Albany are close together, and then maybe right up. And if you think about it, right up the 87, you'd probably be able to get a team maybe in Montreal and Ottawa or Quebec City, because right there you'd have that corridor, that division, that fan-friendly division that everybody could travel to. It sounds like that's what you guys are trying to do for the future. Not necessarily have a team that's out on an island, so to speak, when it comes to travel, but make sure you get everything, X amount of teams close enough together where fans can travel with no problem.
Tim, and if you look at it back, as I say, back in the day, Milwaukee, Des Moines, Grand Rapids, Chicago, right? That was your division, right? As Commish said, and then you're playing, within that division, and then you go out, maybe you go to the East and all of that. You don't go West, and things like that. So they have a great plan as to how, and everybody can look at the map, right? I mean, we all see it that, it's spread out. It needs to be pinpointed. And that's what they're doing, geographically looking at places that, we can put teams in that's going to help everybody and all of that. And like I said, they've got a great plan, how this thing's going to grow. And, they've continued to look at it, build it and all of that. And it's just exciting. Like you said, we're only in year 2, right? We're, baby, it's almost like we're starting all over again, with everything and all of that. But just to see where we've come and what we've done and where we're going is fantastic.
How are you guys not able to fall into the traps that obviously with Gary, you having so much experience, same thing with Jerry, and same thing with Christy. How are you making sure that you don't fall into the old traps when it comes to, as I said, bad ownership for teams, making sure that vetting the teams that are coming, that you want to come into the league next year, where you're going to place a particular team? How do you make sure that you don't fall into the old traps of what happened to arena football back in the early days?
Well, I think what we do with Commission's help and all that is when they vet these potential owners, right, and everything, they're doing their due diligence throughout the year. They're already looking at teams not only for next year, but for 2028, okay? And they're vetting those out, and they're seeing, and they're doing all their due diligence. And we're not just, okay, the season's over, this person wants to come in, boom, we're going to grab them and go. We've seen that in the past, right? Where you had, you'd have the New England team would be for a year. You'd have this team down here for a year, and this team, and that's not what we want. That's not how you grow. So I think we've got a great plan in place of how we structure and how we evaluate to figure out who we want in, when we want them in, and where do we want them in at, with that moving forward.
Yeah. Jeff, how do you juggle the transparency question when it comes to what fans want, what fans want to know versus what you want the league to let the fans know?
Well, I think, obviously we're going to answer questions truthfully, but there's some things. Let me give you an example. Beaumont, Oceanside, Minnesota, and Michigan. they're all new. Okay, now Corpus relocates to northern Kentucky, but we've been in discussions with those four entities for a long time. And so, and that's also taking place right now. So, it'd be nice to go out and tell everybody who we're talking to, but, I'm spending as much time right now talking to potential teams for 27 and 28, as Gary said, that I am with the current group. So we're trying to stay ahead. So the vetting process is extensive, and it's going to become more extensive. But there also, there's a lot ahead, especially starting this weekend, where these potential new entities, these new clubs, ownership groups, if you will, gonna have a extensive opportunity to evaluate what we're doing and see where we're going.
So if all things are just work out as planned with no hiccups along the way, how many teams are we looking at in 2 more years?
Commish.
I would
Yeah,
say,
not holding you to anything.
Yeah,
just,
you're not going to hold us. I mean, I thought 4 new ones this past year was very, very realistic. I'd say that would probably be a minimum for next year. Maximum, I'm not going to go there right now. But
Right, yeah.
when we started off, we thought, all right, we need to go out and get 4 solid ownership groups, and we did that.
And that's one of the traps too that I'm talking about, Commish, is that you want to make, because back in the days, and Gary knows this, back in the day, it was, they would put in the old Arena Ball magazine, oh, we're looking at this market, and they list 10 or 12 markets. It's a matter, as you said, it seems that you're using the experience of who you have in the HQ to make sure that, as I said, don't fall into those traps of the past, but just make sure you do your due diligence. And it's refreshing. It really is, because it's not necessarily a matter of how many teams. It's just a matter of the quality of teams that you want and that you're going to bring into AF1.
Exactly. I mean, you couldn't have said it better. It's, you can learn from the mistakes in the past and don't repeat them again, and grow from them. But as a league, growth, the potential for significant revenue sharing is very, very realistic, and that's going to attract more influential, secure, and financially as well ownership groups. And once they see the product, the opportunity we have to get our game out there this year is extraordinarily. So especially when you talk about the Vice Game of the Week, and then you get into some other things, it's there's going to be a great opportunity. The streaming, for example, of course, we will talk about, but this is gonna it's gonna get a lot of people's attention.
We may as well go into that, because we just had the announcement just yesterday of our streaming partner. I'd say most people probably aren't familiar with these folks. What can you tell us about Home Team?
Go ahead, Gary. I'll let you have a little bit.
Home Team came to us, and we're looking at getting into the sports and all of it. They do a lot of minor league stuff, right? Minor league baseball and things like that. And so they approached us. They talked to us about doing things and all of that. And the way that they did it was very unique. Okay, these are AI cameras that are installed in these arenas. There is no production trucks, right? Tim, you could have a joystick and be the producer running this camera during the game, right? And that's where this was going to. And we thought this was very unique, because as we all know, production costs are very heavily when you try to put a product out on television and everything else. And so it cuts down the production costs, right? They come to us, want a partner. And obviously we know when you want a partner, there's advantages to all that. And I won't get into a lot of that, but it allowed us to be able to then stream on Roku, as I said, right? Fire Stick, Amazon Fire, and all of that, right? And you broaden the horizon a little bit, and we just thought it was a great fit. And so they've done a great job. With that, we're excited to see the product this weekend and everything. And it's funny because you see a lot of people, and as you guys know, and I'm all over social media, and everybody wanting to know, oh, the streaming partner, when it's coming out, oh, camp's getting ready to start, oh, y'all don't have this, oh, well, and it's like, just because somebody else does something doesn't mean we have to do something, right? Everybody picks their time when they want to do something, and you strategize your plan on how you want to do it. And we felt like right after, we got Vice situated and all that, and we got all of our ducks in a row, because you never want to make an announcement, as we all know, and something falls through, and everything. But it's a great partnership that we have with them. I think it's going to be great this weekend, and everybody tune in and catch the first week of the opening season.
So I might add, we spent a lot of time with them. You can imagine the time that was spent and discussions of different aspects of what our fan wants to see, where the cameras are stationed, and then again weeks of discussions on replay and how we're going to handle replay, because replay is going to be a big part of our game. And so we tried to create problems for them with respect to our game, and boy, they stepped up and had answers to everything. So as Gary said, it's going to be a great production.
So we're talking robo cameras, or I mean, that's what it sounds like. And then, like, how many? What kind of angles are we looking at approximately?
Yeah, so I believe we're having 5. There's 5 cameras that will be in each arena. Right now, we all know every arena is built differently, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have your sides, you're going to have your angles, your end zones, and you may have a floater, or a way a building's built. You may have a corner and a corner. You could have 4 corners with a middle, and some things like that. And obviously all the schematics of each building was sent over to them, right? And they looked at it, and then they met with the building people and went through and, okay, we want to lay out these cameras in the best angles, that we can utilize the production and maximize, as Commish said, what the fans want, the fan experience. So it's going to be really, really neat to sit and watch.
When it comes to the Vice broadcasts, I guess we could say that for all broadcasts, whether it be on Vice, whether it be just on HTN, or whether it be on I guess you had YouTube too is listed as one of the games, or something maybe listed. Is it going to be local you have one specific broadcast team for Vice, or is it going to be similar to what was done last year? Well, I guess that's similar to how it was done late last year, where you had local guys calling the game. What have you guys decided to do when it comes to who's going to be the play-by-play in color and sideline for each of these games, because that's going to be available to the fans?
Well, we'll have some local flavor to it, but we're gonna have we've got some good groups lined up right now, and basically don't have to travel. They're going to be able to do it from a studio, if you will, from wherever they're located. So that's also obviously a significant cost savings there. So the Vice production, we were really happy with the way that thing fell into place for us last year, and really, really happy with what the final product was. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna be different, but we've got a good group of broadcasters and with a great deal of experience.
Now, I'm guessing, and if you could just give me some clarification here, guys. Speaking of the Vice broadcast itself, Vice will be the only game that will not. Does Vice have the full exclusive rights to the game that night, or will the Vice games also be broadcast on HS on home team also at the same day, or will it be on demand?
It will be exclusive. The Vice game of the week will be exclusive.
Okay. And when it comes to how you're going to decide which games, which will be something new that the league, that the AF1 has done, really. I mean, it's how are you going to be deciding which game is actually broadcast on YouTube?
Well, that's, I mean, I think we'll definitely have some flexing going on, depending on, rivalries and matchups and, what our expectations are, regarding, the outcomes and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
So, we're not going to just lay everything out there and right now across the season and say, hey, this is going to go here, this is going to go there, with the exception of
Right.
Vice. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So there's no. So you're saying it's very possible there will not be a game on YouTube every single week. Is that correct?
No, we'll be able to watch games on YouTube,
Okay.
but every single week, yes. But
Okay. Okay.
Vice right now has exclusive game of the week,
Okay.
which is scheduled out and which will not be flexed.
Gotcha. 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 Scott, anything?
I'm excited. I have one question for you. I kind of a little technical, but there's been any talk about an Android app? I saw that there's an iOS app, but is there any talk about getting them on Android?
You know what? I have not. Obviously, when we start talking apps and text and all of that, that's hey, that's like cryptid to me, right? There probably is some discussions, with all of that and everything. I mean, that's, if we look at it, that's where everything's going to now, right? That's just how the world's working at this point, and I'm sure that's discussion. I know there had been a preliminary talks, right, with some of our people and all of that, and just figuring out, if they want to do it, when they want to do it, is it the right time or whatever.
And that's just selfish on my part. I'm
Sure.
making long drives every weekend, and I love having the game right there on my dashboard as I cruise down the highway. So
right.
that's just a little selfish on my end, but
who doesn't, right? Who doesn't? Most definitely with that.
Yeah. Speaking of Vice, I don't know, because it really was never mentioned. Commissioner Gary, when it came to the viewership numbers, because we know sometimes it was available on some of the lists that showed, X amount of people watch the games on Vice. If you can't say with specific average numbers for 2025, what were you happy with the numbers? And are there any particular goals for 2026 when it comes to the broadcasts?
Gary, go for it.
Yeah. I think the number, as we go through, we get the numbers, the ratings or whatever it is, the 3 or 4 days after and all of that. As anything else, when it first started, it started off slow and then it grew, right? And it continued to grow. And then you would have the ability of replay, right? And replay would get on there. We'd be able to get those numbers. And so as it grew throughout the course of the year, and it went above our expectations, actually. Okay. And I think that's where, because if it wasn't where it wanted to go, I don't think Vice would want to come back, right? I mean, anything else, when you come back and you say, hey, we want to still be with you guys, I mean, obviously we're all doing something right. Okay, we're reaching those numbers that we want, but more importantly, we're reaching where they're wanting to be. And I think that just, goes to show obviously the game itself, but the product and all of that they're happy with.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That obviously, if the numbers weren't where you wanted and where they wanted, they wouldn't have come back. Out of curiosity, guys, I mean, if you can't say, don't, obviously, is it a single year contract with Vice, or is it more than one?
Gonna have to
look at Gary's smile.
I'm gonna have to stay away from that one. It's
understood.
I mean, it's
understood.
I think everybody can appreciate this. Technology is changing minute by minute,
Mm-hmm.
and we're so far in a different world than we were 2 or 3 years ago. And so we're not going to lock ourselves into a long-term deal. And so we're open, we're constantly fielding calls, and we've got a good group working behind the scenes, just trying to predict and, and anticipate where we want to go with this and how we want to get there. And so,
and to say there's nothing wrong with 1-year contracts. I just want fans to understand that too. Sometimes there can be a 1-year contract, obviously with options, but there's nothing wrong with a 1-year contract. Just as Commissioner was just reiterating, changes sometimes need to be made, but sometimes you want to see how well a partnership goes. And I hope fans understand that, because as you were saying before, Gary, sometimes you don't want to always tip your hand about what's about to happen when it comes to your broadcasting deals for particular reasons. You want to be able to create news and that moment for a league to say, hey, we're now with them. Sure, we're just outside of training camp, but here's an announcement for you. And that's, by the way, that I can commend both you, Commish, and you, Gary, on, and everybody else in the league headquarters, is that there's been strategy over the last 2 years on when to announce things. And I think the league has done a very good job when it comes to keeping the league in the news cycle. Because as all of us know on this show, the news cycle, the attention span for the news cycles these days are getting smaller and smaller. So why not make sure that you have something in your pocket that you can bring out and say, hey, fans, I got this for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? And you think about, look at the NFL right now, right? I saw a deal the other day. They gave a list of like what you have to have now to watch the NFL. And it's crazy, right? And we would love, to be able to have that and everything else. And like Commish said, you don't want to handicap or handcuff yourself into something, and then and then you're into it and you miss on the good stuff. But it's exciting with what we have right now with the Home Team Live, with the Vice, with our different platforms that we're able to show our games, and as anything else, with the outside resources that we have, being able to show that and gather information for them is only going to be able to make things even better for us in the future.
Well, and then too, just to get this out there, some of the Home Team Network leagues, they actually charge. Ours is free, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
No paywall for our stuff.
No paywall, nothing. All you have to do is just make an account and you are up and running.
What? No paywall?
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I know, huh?
That's a novel concept.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Well, you talk about timing of announcements and not, wait until everything's, dried on the paper and whatnot. That happened in another league this year. They made their big announcement. This is where we're broadcasting. And that company went under. And then they last minute, okay, let's find where are we going to do. You want to make sure everything's concrete. And again, I think we're all kind of biting our nails until this announcement yesterday. But yeah, it makes sense to not put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the thing too with that. We're just getting done with training camp, right? And you don't ever want to just pour everything out there one time because you don't have content, right? Yeah. You gotta have that content and be able to build up, and especially you guys, keep you guys suspenseful and waiting and all of that,
huh? What? Obviously, when you go from year to year, there are slight modifications that you guys want to make, usually when it comes to, rule tweaks, things you've noticed during the year that didn't work out so well and stuff like that. Once the once the game season ended, Commish, what was one of the first things that because I know Gary's involved in this quite a bit. What was the first thing that you mentioned to Gary on one of the things that you would hope that you would have liked, that you wanted to change going into 2026, and how much convincing did it take for him to agree with you?
Well, I'm not going to put Gary on the spot. I think we're definitely on the same page. And I think the biggest thing that we did was we hired a supervisor of officials. Now, we'd had obviously we had one in the past, and we had this gentleman in particular kind of oversee things last year, but we had numerous discussions, and he's done an extraordinary job with the book from front to back. His understanding, knowledge of the rules. He just sent out or just received a 95 question test back from every single official, and then they had to have 95% of the questions right in order to get on the field. And so he's done an extraordinary job with our officiating crews, and we've expanded the crew by one official. We've redone the overtime concepts and what we're thinking about and how that's gonna, because what I was on the other side of it over my career, where I was looking at that rule book and I was trying to find a quirk in it or something in it, a weakness or something I could take advantage of. And I did so 2 or 3 different times. And then, oh, by the way, the very next year, there was a rule change. So we're trying to eliminate that, keep all these coaches on the same page with respect to the rules. We had just for example, we had a meeting today with the ownership group. We just wanted to encourage them to make sure that they understand, that everybody in each organization understands that the officiating crew is part of a big part of our game and AF1, and we want to be represented by the best guys out there. And so I would just answer that by saying we've done a great job with the book. Gary, if you want to go into more detail on on overtime and so on and so forth, but you can imagine how difficult fine tuning the overtime process when you have the same goal, which is both teams need to possess. So there's a lot of things can happen in our game without actual possessions of the game of the football. And so we've worked that out. I think we have the officiating crew has a really good understanding of conduct on the field, player contact. We don't want a no fun league. We want to see our 360-pound offensive linemen dancing after scores. That's okay, and choreograph and do all those kind of things, because that's the thing that really attracted to me to this game, is just the intimacy, the relationship between the fans that are sitting behind the boards or right on the boards or on that high top table, and they get their drink knocked over when the receiver comes out of bounds and all those kind of things. And so we want to encourage fan participation, player engagement with the fans, and have a bright red line with respect to respect for your opponent. That's going to be extremely important, and that's one thing one bridge that you do not cross. But beyond that, we want to have fun. We want to make it fun for our fans.
Yeah, I'll kind of add into that, and obviously, and as Commissioner said, the director of officiating, Jason, done an outstanding job. Obviously, him and Commissioner worked hand in hand close and all that, and then he comes over to me and we talk about it, we discuss it, and everything. And as Commissioner said, we're gonna increase by one official on the field. We'll have 6 now, okay, instead of 5. With that, obviously, each one of them will be looking at a little bit more. A lot of the interior stuff gets lost, right? Because, the bad guy's looking at the box, they're looking at quarterback, and the holding and all of that, doesn't get seen all the time. So now adding an extra set of eyes to everything. So, those defensive ends now can't get wide when you can't see it, right? You're going to continuously with that. So that's going to obviously help speed up everything, obviously help with penalties and all of that. And as Jeff said, in the OT rule, where each team will have a possession. Now, everybody's going to say, what is clarified as a possession, right? So let's say I kick off, okay, because if I'm smart, okay, in OT, I want to go defense first, because if I'm getting a possession, I want to know what I have to score, okay? So I can kick off and kick a deuce, and I'm up 2-0, okay, in the overtime rule, right? They can go down and score, but the game's not over because I have not possessed the ball yet. Okay, so they can go down and score it at 7-2. They can kick off to me. Now I go down and score. You see where I'm getting? And now, game over. So there's a lot of different things that happen. What will a possession be? If a ball comes off the iron and I go to catch it and it hits me and I catch it, I turn, but I fumble it. It's not a possession, right? So if they pick the ball up and they go score, I still have to have a possession because I have not had a possession yet of that. So there's that fine line in between there, but that's why we've taken all off season, right, to discuss all of these. And as Commish said with Jason and the help of everything, getting the rule book fine tuned in to where we're all on the same page. And it's just going to clean up a lot of things and just make the game, that much clearer. And obviously that, better product and a lot more fun.
So what is the overtime rule? Is it just offense must touch the ball? Most offenses must touch the ball.
Yeah, pretty much so. So each team, the way we put it is each team must possess the ball one time. Okay, that's pretty much how it is, and then it kind of goes from there. Without getting into all of it, and everything and throwing it out there, and we'll obviously when we do our broadcasts, they'll go over all of that stuff. So we want to leave some of that excitement for fans to be able to see. But I think it's a nice deal that Commissioner Jason talked about doing and, brought it over to us. And we're like, absolutely, this is great. It's just another little thing that we have, in our great game.
So it's similar to the old rules.
Yeah, I'll just add one point. For example, let's just say team A kicks off, okay, gets the deuce, okay. Now, team B takes possession of the ball and they throw an interception to team A. So team A is returning the interception, is tackled and fumbles the ball, and team B recovers, game over. They possessed the ball. They had the ball in their hands. So you have to go through all those different scenarios and have an answer. And oh, by the way, there's not a time limit in overtime.
Change the game. Has absolutely changed the game having the deuce in.
Absolutely. So
it sounds like too, going back to what we were talking about earlier with your partnership with Vice in years past, and Gary, you'll tested this. In arena football in the past, there was a limitation on what you could do. It's like, go get through overtime as quickly as possible because we're in our broadcast block. But because you have your relationship with Vice, you're able to put these new overtime rules into place where you can have this new type of overtime going forward. You don't have to worry about how much time you have left, quote unquote, on the clock.
Exactly. And I think, and that's where, that block of time and kind of looking at things. And obviously, when you kind of really look at it, when it's all said and done, that game ought to run about 2 hours, 8 minutes to 2 hours, 12 minutes. That's really where it ought to run, right? And so, into your overtime and all that, you have plenty of that because you always want to be able to get, at the end of the game, the player of the game and things, kind of get a recap and all that, you never like to have a game finish and, okay, well, thank you very much. And, next week and boom, they cut it off, right? And go to something else. So, we've really looked at that and looked at the timing aspect of it and even, with the play clocks and all of that, as opposed to, ball being down and then the clock starting and just trying to make that be a smooth maneuver all the way through the game. So we have, plenty of time for everything and all that.
So sudden death has been away with. I remember hearing the comment from your director of officials saying it's going to. He likes to call it a sudden win. That's what he used. But is that right? Sudden death. You're technically getting rid of sudden death.
Yeah, it's correct. It's sudden win. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, we for obvious reasons, we eliminated or changed it. We're doing things different, and that makes sense. It sounds better. It's got a, that, and then you guys are going to get really, really used to the ball never dies pretty soon. So just stay tuned on that. So
any other rule changes?
Yeah, there'll be no tush push. We ended that in
Yeah.
the middle of the season. That was that that got out of hand real quick, and we changed that between weekends. But beyond that, I can't recall anything significant, anything that we're going to recognize. But the going back to the sixth official, when the ball goes downfield, when we had 5 officials, all eyes were downfield following the ball or following something. And so as your O line and your D liner, and say the ball is complete down the field, as your O line and D line are working their ways down to a new line of scrimmage,
Mhm.
on occasion there were things that took place and there were no eyeballs on it. So that's going to give us an opportunity to keep things clean on the plays down the field. So
Okay.
the more eyes
Um,
you got out there, the better off you are, and that's, I mean, I've, going back to my days in the NFL, there were a lot of things you could take advantage of. And if in the event that we have an injury and one guy has to go down, we don't need an alternate official. We go back to 5 and, we'll get through the game. But
Yeah.
getting through the game at 4 with 4 would be very difficult.
Yeah. I'm just going to ask the question, get it out of the way. I know the answer already, so I'm going to ask the question anyway. It's going to know if a lot of the fans have asked about this. I would say it, rule book. Obviously, there's so many different there have been changes in the game over the last 2 years, along with the modifications of what's happening this year. Has AF1 brass entertained the idea of making the rule book available? That's the question. I'll just leave it at that.
There's been, Jeff, you want to start and then I'll finish on this?
Yeah, or vice versa. But yeah, we've talked about it. Yeah. And basically, we're going to come as close to it as we possibly can. We're given a lot of details to the broadcast crew, to Vice and everybody else. And we're going to, don't be surprised if we have a weekly podcast that will involve Jason and maybe a coach or some plays and things like that once we get started. But just a more of a question answer thing. But yeah, we have discussed it. But there's reasons for it, as you can imagine. You said at the beginning of your question, you prefaced it by how did you put it? You knew the answer to it.
I knew the answer. I've been around long enough, Jeff, that I know the answer, and I think I know the reasoning why. But I know
and it's like somebody's going to eventually get their hands on it. We hope they don't publish it. And if we do it in due time, we want to get it out there. We feel like there's a need to get it out there. But there are also other leagues out there.
Oh, I get that. Yeah. As I said, I knew the answer. But Gary, let me ask you this. I know you're very busy game week. Can local media and new media reach out to you to get a rule clarification? Is that possible?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. With that, I mean, as Jeff said, we want to be as transparent as possible, right? With all that. And, and the thing of it is too, when our games are going on, okay, if the director of officiating is not at the game, or I'm not at the game, or commission's not at the game, and we're on the bat phone, basically, okay, in case something needs clarification or needs a ruling, we are there to be able to pick up that phone, because they know that if there's something, to pick that phone up and have that decision, because we don't ever want it to be to where, something happens and, well, we're not sure, and, the broadcast or whoever, well, we're not sure on this, what's going on. We're there to be able to supply that support and give that answer and everything.
That's Gary Compton in 2025. I remember that was Gary last year. So
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Charles in chat actually brought up one of the loophole kind of rules, the using drop kicks essentially as punts. Anything to deter that this year?
Yeah, we went back to this, and there was let me phrase it this way. I don't think we have to worry about kickers this year with that situation, right? We may have a few that drop kick. I mean, obviously the rule on a drop kick, we see it, that it's got to it's got to hit the ground and everything, you know, won't, without putting it out there, you know, last year seeing, you know, dropping it and then kicking it and everything and kicking it over to, you know, way out of bounds and it go dead, you know, and all of that. So, you know, we've kind of taken out of that, because if there is a drop kick or something like that happens or whatever, and a flag comes out, the ball goes back to that spot. And now it's, you know, it's the other way. So you'll eliminate that stuff. You know, some coaches will still, you know, I'm very old school, and I think I will always be old school with kind of that part of it. But, you know, coaches are kind of understanding now, you know, what they need to really do and all of that. And, you know, there's just no advantage to it anymore with that. So I don't think we'll see it. I know there's a question brought up a couple of weeks ago to Chrissy and I think we saw, you know, just a handful of them, you know, nothing really changed the game and all of that. But yeah, we made sure that we were correct with the ruling and things like that for it.
Well, I think too, and this is just my opinion, is that I think Scott and I think Gary, you and all of us have talked about this before too, is that I think coaches are finally learning that kickers are people too. They really need to have a good kicker in arena style football. You need to have a good kicker because it's a part of the game. It has been for almost wow. It's been 40 years since the idea came about. So you always have had to have a good kicker. I think coaches are finally learning that.
And with the deuce, it's more important.
No, you're right, because with the deuce, right, and things of that nature, it changes the game. You know, there's a mentality, you know, a lot of people too, you know, on fourth down, going for it, you know, at their own 10 or whatever. Everybody has their reasons, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you know, to me, I got a good kicker. That's an opportunity for 3 points. You know, now again, everybody's going to say, well, you can't guarantee you're going to get the 3. Well, I can't guarantee you're going to get the first down when you go for it. You know, I'd rather kick it and miss it and go down and tackle them at the 10 than throw an incomplete pass at my own 10-yard line and have them from the 10-yard line going in. It's just my thought. That's just how I think the game, right? Other coaches are different and they all have their philosophies, how they do it. But, you know.
Or create that bar ball. If you have a kicker, you can potentially get the bar ball. Instead of getting 3, you get 7.
You know what I mean? The ball never dies.
No, the ball never dies. 100%.
Yeah.
But from a commish from year to year, what's the one thing that you have seen, which obviously will be debuting this weekend with the game itself and the slight modifications? What's the one thing that you're looking more forward to the most? Is it a rule change? Is it the broadcasting? Is it the new ownership groups? Is it just the camaraderie and how it seems to be how much everybody is together when it comes to ownership and HQ? What's the one thing that you yourself are looking forward to the most come this weekend?
Well, I'd say all of the above, but I would also add, I'm curious to see how the new clubs and the old clubs for that matter have built their rosters, to see how the personnel is going to match up. Because that's one thing that, you know, I haven't been in. Gary's probably knows a little bit more about it than I do about, you know, players' abilities and things like that. But I'm curious to see how these new clubs have built their rosters and how competitive they're going to be. We're expecting them to be very competitive, but, you know, what are the matchups going to look like? And then, you know, when they play someone for the second time, you know, and curious to see how these new teams improve over time. So, but most of all, you know, I'm anxious to see what the personnel looks like.
I'm going to just put it to you too, Gary. Anything in particular that you're most excited for?
Well, you know, I think Coach said it. You know, we got 3 teams in this league that won championships in different leagues, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
and
true.
They all play, right? They all play in different leagues and all that. It's a different style and everything else, but you're a champion, okay? So how will that translate? As Coach said, you know, about roster building. I've seen every transaction. I know every player from every roster, and it's going to be exciting. You know, when you get into week 1 and all that, you know, as anything else, you're not in a routine or anything. Things can go funky early. right? And a team that never thought yeah, you know, that's true, right? I mean, you have that situation right there that, you know, is now thrown for a loop, and all of a sudden Minnesota, who thought I didn't have a chance in the world, okay, with maybe their personnel versus now all of a sudden, you know, I could go get one here. So I think that's what would be interesting with that. And just the coaches itself, you know, we have built a really, really great brotherhood with these coaching staff. You know, in the off season, we went down to Naples, Florida at the NSC Combine, and we spent 4 days, right? We spent, you know, 3 days at our league meetings, our winter meetings, and these guys have really got to know each other and really become close. So I'll be interested to see that and, you know, how they are with each other. But yeah, I'm just ready to kick this thing off. And, you know, I'm tired of seeing other scores of other leagues and seeing things going on. And, you know, they always say the best, you wait for the best, it's the last. And so we'll see how it turns out.
Now you talk about obviously the games coming up this week. It's also, you wanted to make sure that that not only does the league look good, but so do the teams. Commish or Gary, talk about your new partnership with Under Armour and what they've been able to produce so far. Have been seen on the field yet, but the looks that all these teams have so far have adopted going into this season.
Yeah,
really excited about it. About, you know, our relationship with them. Gary's seen them all. I've seen most of them. Yeah, the uniforms, the options, the home and away uniforms, and everything. I mean, and we're gonna have uniform police too as well. I mean, we have a deal with Under Armour, and we're gonna make sure everybody's following the rules and wearing what they should be wearing. But you know, it's state of the art. You know, when you deal with somebody like that, and you know, collaborate with somebody like Under Armour, the stuff's gonna look really good.
Yeah, you know, it's a great opportunity, as we always say. You know, it's one of the, you know, big three brand, right? You know, that's out there, and you know, the designs not everybody's got to see. Some teams have revealed uniform, but not all of their uniforms, right? So there's still some stuff that's left in the spot, you know, for special occasions and all of that. Some teams have 3 sets of uniforms. Some teams have 2. You know, our coaches will be geared up in Under Armour. You know, it's just a great partnership all the way around, you know, with that. And we're trying to, you know, obviously, as you said, go to that next level. I think this is a great opportunity for us, you know, to be able to showcase that this weekend. And there are some good-looking uniforms out there that people are going to get a chance to, you know, see this year.
And I'm sharing the Royal Retros jerseys they've got up now. They've, I think these are just released today, but yeah, there's just
they've done a lot with that. We've been working with Royal Retros on stuff and kind of giving them, you know, a little bit of the freelance. Obviously, we told them, as you can see, where the AF1 patch wants to be. You know, we wanted that on there. But color schemes and all of that, they had all the colors of teams, and you know, you could do different things, and this gives fans an opportunity, right, to wear something different. Mm-hmm. You know, with things like that, or somebody to say, "Oh man, where did you get that?" "Oh, you know what? I got that over at Royal Retros, who's a great partner of ours." So definitely like what they've done. They're working on some other special items for us that we're hoping to get knocked out here pretty quickly with some Under Armour stuff and all that on site as well.
Nice. Yeah, I was gonna say Justin and Royal Retros is top notch. I will echo that, Gary, 100%. By the way, I just happened to notice this year, and I don't know, was it just because of an aesthetic? We've seen underarm stuff with the AF1 league patch at the collar. You guys are really going old school, Gary, this year with putting the patch on the shoulder there. That's like from your case, that putting the
well, you know what they wanted with that. You know, Under Armour wanted the yoke, right? So they wanted the yoke on the jersey, okay, because that's where, you know, their brand is. And you'll notice when you look at, you know, I think Notre Dame and somebody else is the only one that doesn't have it. Mm-hmm. Okay. But they wanted that spot, and we thought it would be kind of neat to have the patch put on to the other side of it, you know, just something different and all of that. And I think it turned out great. I know commissioned them in Nashville. I believe they have a jersey sponsor, so that jersey sponsor would go on the other side. Just give it that clean look. It's not NASCAR, but you'd like to anytime you can fill things up on the jersey, the helmet, or whatever. The organizations are doing good, but it's going to be like I said, some unique looks with some of the uniforms out there. The new ones, the Michigan. I really like Michigan's colors. I think what they've done is really neat. Minnesota, is going to be cool. Oceanside's kind of cool as well. Where everybody's got their own unique brand. And what was cool about it is each team got to design their own. Under Armour didn't design it. The teams got to design what they wanted. I think that's what's unique about it.
Yeah, and as I said, it's a throwback, Gary, to your days. Putting the patch on the shoulder is actually quite genius. It still makes sure that you get the league. The league is known out there to the fans. They turn on Vice and say, "Well, what am I watching here?" And it's like they don't happen to see any of the graphics yet. They'll know it's AF1 immediately. So I love the look. I love the look at that. But that's coming from an old school guy from myself. But Commish, you look at what you've gone through so far, going forward into the 26th season. What are you hoping that the fans see?
Well, I'm hoping that number one, obviously, that every game's really competitive. And I'm expecting to have a new group of fans. It was kind of my experience. I'll speak from that. I didn't know much about it. I was busy. The Cats were rolling forever, and I didn't even know what was going on other than I heard about the hot tub back then, and some of the players, and they were using our indoor facility. But I'd never been to a game, and my first time was a tremendous experience. And good friends of mine have been first timers over the last couple of years, and they're still talking about it. I want our fans to not only the experienced fans, the knowledgeable fans, those that have been following this game and following these teams for years, but the new fans. We want a new group. We want a new fan base because this thing is gonna take fire. So that's what I'm especially looking forward to. And we're taking every advantage with our digital footprint to get the word out there. We're as we said earlier, we're taking trying to stay up or stay ahead of technology and get as many eyeballs on our game. And so we're hoping that we'll have some really good numbers after week one. And especially, as we wind down the season, the numbers are going to increase, and then, we'll have an extremely competitive Arena Crown championship game this year.
May I ask quickly before I think Gary, you wanted to mention something, but real quickly, Commish, how have you seen when it comes to Clarksville taking to what is now their team? Obviously, they were in Nashville proper last year, but from the ownership group side of the Nashville Cats, how is the community of Clarksville taken to the Cats?
Well, I'll give you an example. Months ago, we had pick your seat for season ticket holders. And that first event, that first day, we were close to 1,000 people, sold 1,000 seats that first day. So single games are rolling right now, and the numbers are good. The enthusiasm there in Clarksville is extraordinary. The proximity to the base, Fort Campbell, and everything in the county, Montgomery County, and everything there's a great deal of excitement up there. And in addition to that, it's not that far, and our information is telling us that we still have a big part of the fan base that was here in Nashville that's going to be participating up in Clarksville. So the club as a whole is very excited. They're very excited to have Jeff Jarrett's name tied to it as a partner and co-owner. And so Jeff's done some amazing things with respect to, as you can imagine, promoting this team in Clarksville.
What is it about the Nashville Cats franchise having all these country stars coming in from the past till now? Now Jeff Jarrett, can you imagine? I mean, bringing in all the AEW fans and the TNA fans, and obviously we can say, arena style football is kind of like a wrestling match, but what were you surprised, Commish, when you found out that Jeff wanted to be a part of the ownership group?
No, I wasn't surprised. He and I had met on a different topic, and we spoke for about an hour and a half on a different topic. And at the end of our conversation, he says, "So tell me about this AF1 stuff." And that was about 8 months ago, and he hit the ground running, and he's still doing so. So I don't think he sleeps. But no, I wasn't surprised, and don't count out the country group either. There's a good following there as well. So, and hopefully, Jeff's name will carry on over to the league level and way beyond.
How about the other owners you brought in last season? I know you had Gruden and was it Waltrip? I can't remember the other one.
Yes, we had Michael Waltrip Brewery, and yes, and we brought John in as well as kind of a partner, silent partner so far. But John certainly generated a lot of interest there when we made that announcement. So yeah, and the list is going to get bigger.
And you get him do one of those unboxing videos where you send him the gear and he goes through everything.
Oh yeah, that was good. So are we expecting you, Commish, to be like Pat McAfee, and you're going to get into the ring with Jeff Jarrett, and you two are going to go mano a mano in the squared circle?
Thankfully, Jeff made reference to what he's done for decades, and he actually mentioned that it's not real. So maybe, but it's unlikely. The first time I heard his name, I was here in Nashville with the Titans, and our general manager at the time, rest his soul, was hot pissed because Jeff Jarrett had 3 or 4 guys off the roster inside in a match. And, we had to remind him that it wasn't real and the guys aren't going to get hurt. And so on and so forth. But he's creative. He's certainly creative, and he's on the edge, and he's going to do whatever it takes to, get butts in the seats.
Mm-hmm. So wait a minute. So you're saying wrestling's not real?
It's still real to me, damn it.
I didn't say that.
Gary, when it comes to potentially new sponsorships that the league's brought in, are you able to comment on that? Because we talked about what Nashville's been able to bring in, the change in venue from Nashville to Clarksville, but talk about other than the broadcast, the new broadcast.
Hey guys, I'll speak for him. He can't comment.
Oh, okay. That was easy. You're just looking for the right fit. Is that correct, Commissioner? You're looking for the right fit for the right company to come in and be a partner. Is that fair?
That would be plural fit. How do you say that? Yeah. Right fits. Yes.
Yeah. Right fits. Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes. Yep. Scott.
So, just going back to Clarksville, I was fortunate enough to be able to attend both the games last year there, and man, that atmosphere is the best I've seen in years, and I'm definitely looking forward to coming out there again to a couple games this season. And like I said, I'm in a fortunate position where it's a little bit of a drive, but you know what? I can make a drive to Kentucky. I can make a drive to Clarksville, and it's not gonna absolutely kill me. So I'm excited to get back out there and just get into that atmosphere again for sure.
Well, you're welcome anytime, and we really appreciate you guys, and from a standpoint of spreading the word, because the word needs to be spread, heard, and because it's contagious, and so we appreciate it.
And that's why, and that's why we come on these, right? That's why, anytime people, as I've always said, I am always open to anybody that wants to talk arena football. This is my 3rd podcast of the day that I've done today. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I've been on a few of them today, just talking about it, excited about it. Right. And everything, and can't wait. I get the itch this time of the year. Obviously can't play anymore, don't coach and all that, but I like to get down there on the sidelines, right by, listen to what coach is saying, what he's calling, what he's thinking and all that, and try to get my feel a little bit.
And you left out, you want to watch that brown thing that never dies.
That's right. The ball that never dies.
Well, I think Scott and I can say without even thinking about it is we are obviously, Gary, you've been a part of the Arena Football family for such a long time. Commish, we are proud to have you as part of the Arena Football family because sometimes there, as you were saying before, you need to think outside of the box. Sometimes you need that's somebody else in your ear to get ideas and to improve a league. And it's just a pleasure for both of us, and I'm sure for everybody, all of arena style fans, to have you guys involved in the league. Obviously, everybody else in the head HQ also, because sometimes you need, just having you guys around. So far in just this short period of time has made this league better, and we can't say anything else. I really would say, and just thank you guys for what you guys have done.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. We really appreciate it, and let's do this again soon.
Absolutely. Like I told you guys, anytime you want me on, you guys are my two favorite. I'm always willing to come on.
Yeah. Now, last thing before we let you guys go, we noticed that, Commish, you're being a little bit more active on X. And can people reach out to you on X and will you respond back, or is there any other?
Of course I will. Yes. Of course I will. Yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
obviously, Gary,
Yeah,
you are
new.
on,
That's
on,
been
on
5.
X also,
It's been
right?
5 years. That's been 5 years. It's new.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely good to see it pop up.
For a reason. Yeah. So good.
Yep. Right.
So
yeah.
But yeah, guys, thank you for bringing back this game. That we both love. It's big part of our. I mean, behind me, it's a big part of our lives.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, like I say, it's just nice to be back. It's nice to bring it back to a new generation. I've got my 6-year-old that now goes to games. I got my older kids that grew up with it. It's just great to have it back, and it's great to see growth and the potential for even more growth. And that's I think one of the most exciting things to watch right now. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure. And just remember, whatever the reason the league does their announcements the way they do, there's a method to their madness, and it usually works out quite well so far. You can't always know everything. There is transparency, as we've seen of the last 1+ seasons, but just fans need to remember there's a method to the madness, and they do things for a reason. So,
well, just because you don't see it happening, you don't see an announcement, doesn't mean it's not happening, and that's
exactly,
I think, the big message.
No matter how much we bug Gary. Well, Commish, Gary, we greatly appreciate your time this evening, and wish you nothing but the best for the 2026 season.
Thank you,
very
guys.
much, guys. Appreciate it. Nice
guys,
visiting with you.
Yep, hang tight. We'll talk with you here in a moment.
All right.
Thanks everyone for coming out, and until next week, and we'll see what we got lined up for y'all. All right, take care.
Touchdowns, tackles we discuss. Feel the rush, come join